Hello, everybody, and welcome to Curdcast, the podcast for people who like to eat cheese. I'm your host, Jen Mason, and with me today I have two co-hosts. I have as always, lovely, always willing to eat cheese with me, Julie Fay-Fan-Balzer, coming to us from Massachusetts. Hello, Julie. How are you?
Hello.
It's good to see you. And we have Justin Warner, our second time guest curator from, you may have seen him on the Food Network show. He's coming to us from South Dakota. You can see him all over. I feel like every time I turn on the Food Network show, Justin, I see you on there and I'm delighted. But welcome to the podcast first. Thank you for co-curating our box this month. And welcome from South Dakota.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm super jazzed about this. And, I'm a huge fan of Curdbox and everything that y'all do. And I think that America is a better place because of this, It's, and people tell me about it all the time. They're like, I was hesitant at first because I think people have gotten burned on subscription-based services in the past.
Yeah.
But when you're getting these fine morsels, and pairing and all of the work is essentially done for you. All you have to do is open and plate. You don't even really have to do that. You can just let your guests open.
You really can. Just guys, open the box and start cutting the cheese up and let's party. Yeah, it's so interesting. When we did our research, so we started with our store, which we have in Brookline, Massachusetts, and we did a whole bunch of research because my past job was in market research, understanding customers for big enterprise companies. And so I sort of took all that big knowledge and used it on this really small thought and idea. And what we found was that people, when you ask them how adventurous they are and as an eater, how do they see themselves, they rated themselves much higher than sort of midline, which surprised me. And then when we asked them how they ate day to day, it was much lower than what they saw themselves. And I did some thinking and chatting with people. And, I think it comes down to, you can watch all the Food Network shows, you can tag and post things and clip things on Pinterest. And when you're in the grocery store and the cart is going down the aisle, you just want to get it done. And we just put the same thing in our grocery cart every time. Like, we're like, oh yeah, there was that recipe, but I don't have time to look it up right now. So that's why our hashtag is Stop Eating Boring. And for me, it sounds funny, but I'm glad that you sort of are feeling what I'm trying to put into this, which is it's life is complicated, hard, full of things we have to do. I can ship you a box of cheese that will let you eat something new this month. I can do the work because I can do it. I can pick it out once and send it to all these people. And so for me, I love every time a box ships, I feel it's like, everybody's getting 6 new things to try this month. And I am like seriously jazzed about it. I feel like sometimes I shouldn't talk about it because I sound like a cheesy salesman, but I really like the joy of sharing this with people is the whole reason why we did Curdbox, because I couldn't share it with enough people just coming into our store. So I love it. And I love working with people like you and this is exciting. So let's see, before we get started too much, we're going to talk to people about like how they can find you and stuff later, but any new projects or what should we be watching for? So I don't forget to ask you this later. I want a big plug for your 2 new brick and mortar things, so people come up to South Dakota and come see what magic you've been making there.
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, you are not a cheesy salesperson because I can be that. And I will just say that here in South Dakota, where I live, which is Rapid City, South Dakota, very close to the Black Hills. Some people call it the gateway to the Black Hills. We don't have a cheese shop. And, really the fanciest cheese you find is whatever basically is not selling at the local grocery store, because if it's not selling it's because it's like too fancy. So anyway, I love this box because it breaks me out of my routine, and I'm in the business of not eating boring as well, and sometimes in that quest I end up eating boring myself. So it's great to have this box arrive at my doorstep and have a little treat that I can then share with my friends, family, followers, etc. Anyway, my wife and I opened 2 brick and mortar establishments here in Rapid City, South Dakota. We have Bokujo Ramen, which is a ramen shop that uses local proteins, eggs, produce when we can, and I think it's off the hook. Most people think it's great. I think it's great. I eat there every day. And then our most recent project is called BB's Natural, which is a natural wine bar. And thanks to my previous passion for cheese and then my time working with you all, I've put together a nifty little cheese program there. And it's really starting to stick. We do, on our biggest selection, we do a bloomy rind, for those who are not familiar with it, which tends to be soft and maybe like a triple cream or something like that. We do a bloomy, an Alpine style, foreshadowing. One aged Gouda, simply because it's drugs. And you were on my podcast talking about how aged Gouda is drugs.
Yeah.
A washed rind and a blue. And so we rotate out in those slots, if you will. And South Dakota honey, great crackers, all the above.
Excellent.
What is natural wine?
This is a whole other podcast. Well, essentially, natural wine is an idea and a movement, as opposed to like a government specified thing. So organic is a thing that you can be certified in. Natural wine, there's just no category. But in general, the idea is wine that is very low human intervention. So, grapes will eventually turn into alcohol on the vine themselves. Birds will eat them, get drunk, and fly into your window. It's real. So basically, we're trying to put that in a bottle so we can drink it. And when I say we, I mean I am not a winemaker, but people in the natural wine movement are trying to do as little as possible to get that same effect to you. There's something like 100 plus compounds that one can add to wine to get the desired effect, whatever that may be. Just as there are flavoring components one could add to cheese. And wine and cheese share so many similarities. But in general, when you're doing less to wine, it ends up being cheaper because you are doing less to it. And oftentimes it's better for the planet. So, for example, no pesticides, good thing. Dry farming, so no irrigation, not taking water from where water naturally wasn't. Not necessarily promoting monoculture. A lot of times it's a field blend of grapes that just happen to be hanging out in the same area. And so sometimes you get things that are like too weird, and other times you get things that are totally delicious. And right now we have a list of about 40 bottles that I believe are totally delicious.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a fun world. I'm reading a fantastic book about the wine scene in Sicily called Palmento, which is actually the old way that they used to make wine. Some are still making it that way, but I'm in a natural wine section right now, so I'm feeling like my Venn diagram of things I do for work and not for work are not clashing. They're blending nicely. Awesome. All right, so we should start eating through this box of cheese. For those of you who have happened upon this for whatever reason, I just want to let you know that what we're doing right now is eating through a Curdbox. Curdbox is a cheese and pairing subscription box that we send to your house every month. But I also hope people who don't get Curdbox are listening to this, because it can inspire you to go to your cheese store, your cheese aisle, order cheese online, get a Curdbox and eat along with us next month. What we're trying to do is, like I said earlier, get you to stop eating boring. We're telling a little story with cheese. I keep telling people it's an edible story, but it's not that kind of edible. I catch it is so popular in the vernacular these days that it feels necessary to say every time. Okay, so we are going to start with our Red Witch, and hopefully you two have some of that with the rind on it. So the part that I cut actually has the rind and part of the label, so it's a funny color. But this is a cheese made by Bodenseekasse. It is a Swiss cheese. It's 8 months old, and and it's rubbed in paprika. And of course, I just now moved away my entire list here. And the reason I was hoping you guys had your piece next to you is that I'm like getting the smokiness of the paprika was really coming through for me on this. It was a really nice sort of extra flavor. Now, do you eat this rind? Well, I wouldn't eat the part of the rind I have right here because it has the paper label on it. Don't eat paper, don't eat wax, don't eat wood, don't eat cloth. I mean, if you do, talk to your doctor because it probably means you're missing something in your diet. But the pimento still does a couple different things. One, it helps with protecting the cheese. It is known to keep pests away, but also it adds to the paste, which is the inside of the cheese. But anyways, you guys should be trying these while I'm talking. I talk forever. It's funny, they also make an Old Witch. This one's called Red Witch. The Old Witch doesn't have the paprika, and it's aged about 3 months longer. And this one is so soft. Wow, it's just... You made good picks for this box, Justin, on the cheese.
Thank you. Sometimes I find, foils, when you're pairing things and you're trying to learn about something, sometimes you can learn a lot about something by having a foil, something that it's like polar opposite. But sometimes it's like paint swatches where you're comparing like multiple shades that are just slightly different. Sometimes I think you can actually learn more when things are similar than necessarily having to have the polar opposite. So I'm excited to see how these kind of bleed into each other.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to talk about the rind on mine. So I have some of the paper on it. So I'm a big fan, and this is just my own personal habit of it's like a very Bernie Sanders approach to cutting cheese. So I'm gonna cut the paper side off of this wedge and then leave the rind that doesn't have that papery label on it, and then cut across there so we get equal rind distribution.
Yeah, which is the right way to do it. Exactly.
Oh,
little bit for everybody. And that works both when the rind is great and when the rind isn't great. So in the I think it's always great, but in the like Parmigiano Reggiano world, what you wouldn't want to do is cut the whole wheel down, right? The rind is very thick on that. And then somebody just gets a piece of rind that has nothing left to grate onto their pasta. You want a little bit of that sort of, everybody shares the weight of, there will be some of this natural wrapper, but also if you're like me, you save them all and put them in your sauce. And I have a friend who's a chef who taught me how to do a Parmesan broth, and darn if that didn't change my world. Look that up, everybody.
It's like the dashi of Europe.
Right, exactly. I had been waiting to use it for the right tomato sauce, and I was like, "Why? I can make a broth. This is even better." All right, Julie, what do you think of this one?
So I think it's really, salty and flavorful. And when you eat the rind, it adds that touch of funk. So I'd say, like, if you're a person who likes funk, eat the rind. And if you're not, if you don't eat the rind, you don't get it. So it's kind of nice that it works both ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely getting a little bacony, which is going to be nice with our ham later. And I think, like you said, Justin, trying them together, like, great to experience them all on their own, but then trying them together, you can learn so much. Like, you think you know cheddar until you taste 8 different cheddars together, and then you're like, no, now I know exactly what kind of cheddar I like, or wow, I really like every cheddar. There's not a lot of cheeses I don't like.
Yeah, I love this. And I think when you think of Swiss, even if all you have is the mental picture of the cheese with holes, and if you have the like mental flavor profile of something a little nutty, a little funky, something that melts all right, something that goes well with mushrooms, I'm just taking like the Arby's approach, right? I think you will be pleasantly surprised on how this adjusts those dials. 1, no holes. 2, smokiness. Okay, let's go ahead and add that. I think this would be absolutely ripping on like a a mushroom Swiss burger done on a grill, get some of that smokiness back in. And I think I'm just taking a guess here, but the moisture content seems good enough that high enough that if you slice this thin, you'd probably get a good melt on that. Can you confirm?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it definitely falls into the smooth and melty category. So these, and how I like to explain it to sort of the layperson who doesn't want to learn all about how cheese is made, is that it in the process of making it, it was warmed up, it was heated. So this is the category in the industry we call cooked and pressed cheeses. So at some point the curd got cooked and the cheese got pressed. And I always try to explain this as like the cheese got training wheels for melting. It like got it in its chemistry. It sort of pre-learned how to melt. Those proteins started, gathering together before it became a full big block of cheese. It gets pressed, which makes it nice and smooth. And so yeah, it's like it had training wheels early on, or it had like pre-K. It had a little bit of melting therapy early in its life, so it makes it a really great melter. All three of these fall into that category. So all of these are going to melt nice. They're not going to separate unless you're really mean to it. They will just warm them up. You can already tell like this has been sitting out for an hour for me. It's not melting already, but it's giving in. It just like it's just saying eat me. Okay, so let's start with our next cheese, which let's go to the Raclette Sweets, Classique. This is by Mi Forma. This is only 70 days old. It is a traditional cow's milk cheese, and oh my goodness. So this is where you start tasting them together if you want, but we can do that at the end. And you like it's an entirely different profile. For those of you who are watching or who aren't watching, since you can't see me, I'm taking these because this is cut an hour ago and breaking it just so I can it's from the fresh broken or the fresh cut part of a cheese is where you'll get it's like true best. It's like swirling your wine. All right, guys, what do you think of this one?
Can I say something weird?
Yes, always.
When I was super young, my dad was super old and he had this desk full of old supplies, like office supplies. And there was this stuff called mucilage. It was like a glue that you would specifically use for like papers or stamps that don't adhere.
Okay.
And it had this weird goofy rubber tip on it. And for some reason, I smelled this sort of rubber, this sort of like freshly rubbed eraser, yet old cracking rubber. Like cracking rubber doesn't smell like a shower curtain. Cracking rubber has like an older smell to it. And there's like a little bit of like a petroleum-ish sort of vibe. Are you getting?
Yeah.
Or am I weird?
No, you are. And it's so funny for other people who are like, what are we talking about? Like some people are just eat it. They don't think about what else they're smelling. I had a similar experience with, Riesling.
Oh yeah.
I was
definitely.
at a tasting and it tastes like, the first taste I had of this was the first time I noticed it. It tasted like a pool floaty or like the pool armbands you have from your childhood.
Vinyl.
And yeah, it was crazy. I was immediately transported to my pool growing up in the backyard. So it's so interesting that you've got like that deep memory of something that can still come to the front. We use the same part of our brain uses. We don't do it. Our brain does it by itself for memories as we do for the smell. Sort of the smell part of the taste sensors, and that's why we have a lot of these comfort foods, or this smell of butterscotch reminds you of grandma cooking cookies or frosting or something. Entirely different profile. Julie, what do you think about this?
It has a really nice mouthfeel. Like it just, when you eat it, it just fills your mouth. It has that umami, right, that you're looking for. And so I will say, I'm excited to see how this one pairs. I feel like this is going to be one of those cheeses that wants to get friendly with everyone,
Yeah, yeah. And this is a raclette cheese. So raclette is one of those funny words. I'm studying Italian right now, and I'm really better understanding linguistics that I should have learned when I was maybe in 8th grade, but I'm learning them now. And I think this is a funny word. If I was learning French, I'd be like, oh, this is a word that breaks the rule. It's like, it's a verb. We're going to have raclette. It's a verb. It's a noun. It's the name of a cheese. It's the name of a pan. It's a bunch of different things. It comes from the French Swiss dialect, racler, racler, which means to scrape. Which is interesting because you'd think, oh, maybe it comes from to melt. But when you're making raclette cheese, you usually they would have like a half wheel, and it would be next to on this like little apparatus when you had like giant hearths in your home, and you would just push it towards. It would be on like a swing arm. You push it towards the fire while you're cooking, and it would warm up, and then you'd move it back, and then you'd scrape the cheese off, and then you push it back and let it heat up again, and the sort of the top layer would just do it. So raclette is really about the scraping of the melted cheese, and not it's melted cheese that you happen to scrape. I think it's an interesting concept. But raclette is great. And again, talking about that melty, Justin, this flavor will intensify. I really encourage people to like go make a little bit of a grilled cheese sandwich on this, like try it that way too while you're doing it, because this is going to taste different melted.
I 100%. I have some anecdotes on all of this.
Great.
First up on Tournament of Champions, I want to say season 2 on Food Network. We made the chefs cook with a raclette melter, and it was a tabletop version, and they are actually not too expensive if you are a cheese nut. And it's basically a it's basically like a space heater for your cheese. And it's got a place where you can, like, again, basically do that action that you were doing, but, you know, with a modern 110 volt plug-in apparatus. So it's out there. The second thing is, you know, maybe people listening think it's weird that we would say like rubber or petroleum, but, you know, originally all those things came from the earth too. They've been manipulated hell and back by human beings.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, someone eventually found oil, turned oil into plastics and plastics into vinyl. And originally, at one time, it came from the earth too. So I don't think that there's actually anything that's super far-fetched in the world of like smells and things that we can detect.
Yeah, it's just like breaking down compounds. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And when you put a couple of them together, they remind you of something. Yeah, it's all very, very fascinating. All right, and this one is kind of got a taste similar to Gruyere. And then what I want to do is move on to, I'm going to use this as my Gruyere segue into our Moosbacher. This one is by Schaudinger. And this one is the one that looked most like a Swiss cheese. This one actually called from Salzburg, Austria. 8 weeks old, but a baby. And this one has been described as a cross between a Gouda and a Gruyere. So there's my Gruyere tie-in. That's a long way to make that work.
Can I be honest about this cheese?
Yeah.
I just picked it for the name. I'm sorry. Like,
Listen, why not?
I just loved Moosbacher, and like I did a taste test of various Alpine cheeses with my team, and they all gravitated towards it as well. And I want to say it was the name as well. And like, it went viral. You know, people were like, "Hey, watch out! You're gonna step on the Moosbacher," or like, you know, "Did you wash your Moosbacher today?" "Yes, chef." You know, like.
It's great. You know, it's kind of like naming things to me. Is kind of like you know, a book cover. I do judge a book by its cover. I always think, if this person didn't like this book enough to make a nice cover for it, then why should I like it enough? And I think the same thing about names. Like, I like get giddy over, you know, the beer section these days. The names on beers are full of, they're almost more punny than the cheese world. We are very punny, but I feel like we have the same 20 puns that just keep circling. The beer world is great, but it's a great name. I love the name. Okay, so this one is tasting very Swiss to me, but in all the best ways. There are some a lot of Swiss gets a bad rap, I think, sometimes for its plasticness, sort of its texture. This texture is beautiful. What do you guys think?
I often think of Swiss cheese as like plastic cheese in my brain. It seems like the most sort of like ubiquitous, boring thing that people put on stuff. But this is definitely not that at all. And it has, for me at least, like a really wonderful, deep, complex flavor. Like it's surprising because at first with the texture being so smooth, you think like, oh, this is going to be a regular Swiss. And then it turns into something really just so much more.
I feel like this is this cheese has the highest acidity of the bunch. Is that accurate? It's got a little, it's got more tanginess to it. And when I say tang, I mean like almost sourness.
Yeah. Which is sort of what we taste in a Swiss cheese. But I think this is sort of like what we always hope Swiss cheese is going to taste like. Never when you approach a tray of cubed cheese and there's a Swiss on it, does it ever taste like this? This is what you always hope it would. There is the tanginess. That's what Swiss is known for. This is also, here's an interesting fact about this cheese. This is, they claim, the only cheese in the world that is ripened from both the inside and the outside. And what they mean by that is this is a cheese that has holes in the center. Not sure if you guys, I had a couple holes in my big chunk, but so it has these holes. It's ripening through that process, but also it's covered in, I think they said a linen and a smear. It's got and I don't have the information on what it is smeared with. Sometimes it's from like a previous batch, something from the previous batch. And there's a great name for that, and I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look that up for another podcast.
That's the Moosbacher technique, It's both noun and verb.
Yeah, exactly.
This cheese got Moosbach.
Totally. Yes. So they smeared it with some Moosbacher, and it became Moosbacher, and that surface ripens the exterior. Now there are plenty of cheese that are surface ripened. Anything that's a washed rind cheese. So it starts out life as a brie, possibly brie style, but then gets washed as it ages, creating an entirely different set of bacteria on the surface that is ripening from the outside in. That's changing the flavor from the outside in. But this is it's really interesting, and but they've obviously taken the Swiss. It's got the Swiss flavor profile. It's definitely using Swiss cultures because that's what it tastes like. That it gets that tang. It definitely is tangy. It is. I would 100% agree. The most acidic of these cheeses, and I can't wait for us to try them all three together. It's interesting. I feel like it's got a little fruitiness to it too. Like it's maybe the brightest, maybe of the three. But I might change my mind after I taste them all together again. I reserve the right to change. And this. Austrians love this cheese so much that they have created a special cheese. You're going to like this one. It's called Moosbacher Suppe.
Wow.
So you
sequel.
can have, yeah, exactly. So it just never ends. All right. So if you guys are ready, let's start talking about pairings here. And we're going to start off with our ham for our ham and cheese. The friends of our Alps. And this one is, we have two products from this company, Three Little Pigs, who I love. I love everything they make. If you're out there shopping, you don't subscribe to Curdbox, well, first of all, you should subscribe, but go to your grocery store and go look for, or your specialty food store. They will have something by this company. I've yet to ever see anybody that carries, half of what they have, but whenever you see it, know that it's a brand. It's a lovely company in New York doing things in sort of the French manner, and everything they make is great. So we're going to start out with their hamon de Paris.
Can I pipe
Paris
in
ham.
Real quick?
Yeah.
So I've been working with Three Little Pigs, aka Trois Petits Cochons, for more than a decade. And they helped me launch the infamous foie gras donut, which propelled my first New York operation, Do or Dine, right there in Brooklyn, into all sorts of various publications because we made this foie gras donut and they made the foie gras pate that we shoved in the donut. So anyway, shout out to Three Little Pigs. They do great work. I visited their factory in Brooklyn and it's all delish.
Yeah, they're just fantastic. And they started out just as like a little small deli and just grew. I love a story like that. And I love the tie-in there. So that's fantastic. Yeah, so this is a French style cooked ham. So unlike what we would usually put in the box, which would be a salami or a cured ham, we've got a sort of regular, as regular as a beautiful French ham can be, ham. I don't know. This is like, again, what you want ham to taste like.
Yeah, it's so juicy. And one of the things that I don't know, like I try and, so this is like a compressed meat product, you know, it's not like this was sliced directly off of the ham, but when you pull it apart, you'll see that it doesn't go in straight lines because it's been loosely packed, you know, it's a coarser sort of pack on it. And it's following the natural sort of ebb and flow of the muscle fibers that were in it. And it is juicier than all get out. And it's got like a just right salinity to it. It's like salty, but not overly salty.
But salt is not the primary flavor. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Like there's still flavor in there, which I love. So I've been a Three Little Pigs fan forever. I've loved their pate since I lived in New York. And so the second I saw this package in the box, I was ready to eat. And I'm not always a ham fan, but this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is like a gateway ham. You know, like I think we've all been burned by like the sad ham sandwich, you know. Like I don't believe that ham should be like, there are certain hams, but like deli ham should not be sliced like as thinly as possible. It just gets so weird in a sandwich. Yeah. And like you see this is like a thicker cut. Like this is like a 2 on a deli slicer. I'm into deli slicers these days.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's my husband always jokes that say eternity is 2 people and a ham. Because you know you get a ham for the holidays and you just keep eating it, but this is lovely. And also I love that it comes in this like small packaging too, because it is something you can just pick up, add to your sandwiches, add to a cheese board, add to whatever, without sacrificing the deliciousness of this, as opposed to just going to a deli and asking for whatever they're slicing that day. This is beautiful. I really, really, really love this. And I've been working with Three Little Pigs for 5 years now, and love them but they're great because my customers love everything, and everything we put in the box, Julie, I think has been phenomenal. I don't think I know. All right, so let's stay with Three Little Pigs now, and let's have a little pickle. So we have the Cornichon pickle by Three Little Pigs, and which is sort of a sweet and spicy. So they're pickled in the traditional way, but they're sweeter than a traditional gherkin to start with. Sort of or Cornichon, and then they add the chili in there.
This is like bread and butter pickles, but with a PhD.
Oh, well said. Again, it's like you were talking about before, Justin, the layering on of different profiles, compounds, whatever you want to call it. It takes it from being forgettable to memorable. Really lovely combination.
I feel like sometimes the gherkin can simply the gherkin is functioning as texture and texture alone, and a vessel simply for the brine. But here I'm left with like a cucumbery finish. You know, you get that pop of acid right off the bat. Then you kind of like, I don't know, it feels like a water slide. You know, you jump in, you're like, that water's cold, and then you're like, wow, it's sour. Whoa, I like go around a corner of my taste buds, and you get the sweetness. And then the heat is really only, in my opinion, detected once you start to chew. And then once you like swallow, you're left with a sort of refreshing, like cucumber water sort of vibe to it. And I feel like oftentimes the fact that these were tiny cucumbers at one point gets overlooked.
Yeah. Okay, now that you have all that beautiful description there, now I'm trying to figure out, like, I was thinking about cucumber water. It's one of my favorite things when I'm like out traveling, and the fancy hotel has got like the big picture of cucumber water or strawberry and basil or whatever. And I'm always like, why don't I ever do this at home? But I'm like, okay, now I need to mix this into a cocktail. This needs to be my olive on some great cocktail because of that little heat.
Oh yeah, this and gin.
So
I'm a huge Gibson drinker. I love the pickled onion on a Gibson. Because I'm also 78 years old. But yeah, a little dash of this guy on the side, and I think cucumber and gin are obviously BFFs. Yeah. So why wouldn't we bring the pickled cucumber into the gin? Now I want gin. Thanks, guys.
That'll be our next podcast with the natural.
9 o'clock in the morning here.
Very sorry. We'll have to do one for later in the evening next time.
That's
okay.
Fine. 5 o'clock somewhere.
What do you think, Julie? You
I like these. I'm used to cornichons as just like a little, like an extraordinarily salty pickle, which I mean, I don't have a problem with. I'm a fan of pickles, but this is definitely a different kind of pickle. And I like the heat because I like the way that it spreads in my mouth. Like at first I just sort of noticed a tingle on my tongue. And then by the time I've swallowed and finished the cornichon, I'm at this place where I'm like, oh, I feel the heat a little bit on my tongue, a little bit in my throat. And it's that sort of really nice feeling you have after you've eaten something, that instead of having the food sort of disappear and be gone, it's almost like it's still with you.
Yeah. Which makes it nice to eat with other friends too, which is a good thing. And what else I like about this, and Julie, you and I have had discussions about cornichon crunchiness, and it is very nice crunch. We've had some together, some not so crunchy cornichon. And
mushy cornichon is not good.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna finish this off with our sixth friend. And I have a tiny little spoon to eat it off of. This is Brownwood Farms. Okay, so Julie, reminder here for you. This had the, Justin, you had the box too, the maple bacon jam from Brownwood Farms, and they had a cherry jam that is amazing.
Yeah, if this follows suit, it's going to be legit.
It smells amazing.
This is, good.
Oh, what a texture.
Right?
It was like sticking to the lid.
Yeah.
It's cream with a K mustard, and they're using locally sourced items in Michigan. I gotta believe not necessarily that Michigan has the best locally sourced products, but just like that they're taking the time to pick good products is part of what makes their final thing so great. I just love these guys so much. We haven't been disappointed by any of these, and their products always end up as some of our customers' favorite things. This is good.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ingredients here, and on your mouth, the mouthfeel is definitely like when we think of mustard, we generally think of like the yellow bottle,
right?
Which tends to separate, be watery. Like you would never in your life call that creamy. And then you taste this, and the way it kind of sticks to your mouth and spreads around, you're like, creamy. But there's no cream in this whatsoever. It's simply just got the viscosity of a creaminess. And I got to say, the texture of it, and I rarely think of the texture of mustards or condiments. Like it's just, this is like begging for a pretzel to be dipped in.
It's not going to slide off.
I almost feel like spreading this is maybe the saddest way to go about it. Like this is a dipper, a sticker, a slather. A dolloper. Yeah, I could even see
texture.
Yeah, popping this guy into a restaurant style squirt bottle, and so you can get like a laser precision dot. This on top of like a deviled egg. Like you've already got mustard in the deviled egg, but bang, you pop a dot on top.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Pop a dot by Brownwood Farms. That was free, guys. Get at me.
Yeah, that is a great idea. I mean, I could definitely see, because of the structure of this and the flavor of it, like it's worthy of a showcase. I think maybe a just yellow mustard, not so much, but this one is like rethinking something like that. That deviled egg that our grandmothers and great grandmothers made, and doing it entirely different. But any sort of hors d'oeuvres, because you're going to have more in this jar, people, than you can eat with this board. So you're going to have leftovers. So think about like, man, I don't know, some like Cuban sandwich inspired, like little sandwich with this on top, and maybe one of these pickles. I don't know.
You've actually given people like a pure Cuban sandwich. All you need is bread and pulled pork.
Right?
So
Exactly.
you could go to your local big box store that has pulled pork already made. Get yourself some nice bread.
Oh,
press it down.
So
Who
great.
knew, man? I'm going to propose this in honor of my late friend Carl the Cuban Ruiz.
Nice.
He would be very happy about seeing all of this.
I love that.
Can I say one other thing about this mustard?
Yeah.
So when I opened this Natty Wine Bar, we're doing meat and cheese plates, charcuterie barns, whatever, and aside from the great products that we're featuring on them, I wanted a way to make things stand out and be different. And kind of by accident, but also because I ran out of ramekins, I started experimenting with not putting condiments in vessels.
Yeah.
And so I feel like because this mustard has such great structure, it's begging for a swoosh on the board directly, or perhaps little laser dollops, to kind of decorate your board, always using odd numbers, of course.
Yeah.
But I've really started drifting away from ramekin or sauce on the side, or taking up all of my cheese board space with a bowl. It annoys me ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're making a cheese board for many, and you have to, like, otherwise it just becomes a whole cheese board of a sauce. One of so our brick and mortar store, Curds & Co, has a new e-commerce / cheese school that is we've got a whole video on there about making like your own little lunch, your Lunchable for the day, and doing the little smear swoosh on there. Like, who wants a ramekin for like enough for one person? And but it makes you feel special. You've just made this like little plate. You're going to work through lunch. We're working from home. We're working remotely, whatever. But you have this like cute little plate, little swoosh, a couple little things. It didn't take you 5 minutes. You didn't have to heat anything up. And but yeah, this mustard is great for that. Absolutely great. Okay, so what we have to do now, guys, is the hardest part of the entire podcast, which is to try things together. And the first thing I'm going to do, and you guys can do whatever you want, but tell us what you're working on, is try the 3 cheeses in comparison, and see what I think. But feel free to dip and twist and eat in it. And we don't necessarily, although Julie and I like to try everything at the same time, sometimes we just need to just try them in succession. So
yeah, I get it.
What are you going to try to?
I dipped a little raclette into the mustard, and I'm not mad about it. It was a nice combo.
Excellent.
So I'm revisiting them, but I'm going raclette first. Moosbacher second. Let some of that acidity kind of wash it away. Red Witch last. Man. Oh, man. So for me, having the Moosbacher in between them as almost like a little aroma and palate cleanser, if you will, made the Red Witch really pop with super creamy, super nutty. Yeah, I'm just a
Yeah.
happy camper. I'm going to Hamtown. Sorry, guys.
So when you're done with Hamtown, I have a chef question for you, Justin.
You can just I can Hamtown and
Oh,
chef
you can
question.
Hamtown, yeah. But I'm going to ask you while you're eating. So one of the things that we do for our grilled cheeses, and this isn't necessarily just about grilled cheeses, but anytime you would need to add cheese, this type of cheese to a recipe, we add a cheese blend, a chef's blend that has 3 different cheeses. For us, it's sort of like it's like making an apple pie with a few different apples. So like some of them get soft and fills it, and some stay crunchy, and some stay this. Can you talk a little bit about the reasons for using multiple cheeses in cooking? Not that anybody's going to have cheese left after they eat this box, but this is a really interesting collection and different flavor profiles.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference why we like a band and not open mic night. You know, open mic night is like one dude with a guitar and an idea, but a band requires cooperation, improvisation, respect, understanding, and it creates harmony. And so to me, like, you know, an apple is great if it's free on open mic night. But an apple with cheese and an apple with cheese and a condiment, or 3 different kinds of apples, you know, we naturally crave harmonies and we crave juxtaposition. And it's the same reason we like having like conversations with a group of friends, because everybody's different. We're just naturally drawn to that. And I think there was a study done that generally when you have multiple textures, and as human beings, we love a crunchy exterior and a gooey interior. Think about it like a calzone, a pie, you know, M&Ms.
Stick.
Yeah, you know, like we love having the 2 textures together. And somebody did a study, and that generally they found that would be more calorically rewarding when we experience that texture. So it's been in our like DNA since we found the first nut and ate it with the first fruit. Like combining these 2 things are going to make for a better diet. And so anyway, you know, sometimes things can become cacophonous, too many people at your party, you know, polyphonic spree of flavors. That was a dating myself reference. But anyway, you know, I think 3 is generally like a truly magical number in many ways, in numerology, but also in flavors. So yeah, the classic 3 cheese blend, good idea. My friend used to, this is pretty funny and maybe won't make the cut, but you mentioned edibles earlier. And I knew this guy never partook, but he always insisted that his joints be a 3 cheese blend.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting to think of this as sort of the band is playing, and are we listening to a 3-piece quartet or a full orchestra? And I just had a piece of, I tried it twice. I tried it with both the Moosbacher and the Red Witch so far. A little bit of the ham dipped in that mustard, and I'm done. I'm just so, and then I, you know, cleansed my palate before I did it again with the pickle.
Yeah, so I did the Moosbacher and the ham, and I think the only thing that I would add to it is bread and heat.
Yeah,
like that's the only thing that could make it better. It's a great snack right now, but this is screaming sandwich.
yeah. Oh, so much. Wow.
I'm pretty sure I tried every possible combination of mixing and matching, or at least I've done my best. And it's the wonderful thing about this is it's all so good together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think that's was kind of my like feeling on this theme, is that like when you're using great ingredients and you've got great cheeses and they go well together, it is like these things are all friends. Duh. Like it's practically a sandwich right here written.
Right.
But there's so many variations and so many little micro pairings and micro interactions and textures and everything. Like this is all you need. And like it's more than a kaleidoscope of sensory experiences.
Agreed. All right. So what I need to tell us next is where you can find everybody on this, and we'll bring this to a sad but close. We're going to run out of food soon. So our let's see, our Raclette Swiss. You can find out more about Miforma at miforma_official. Moosbacher, you can find out more at, I'm going to spell this, SCHAERDINGER, Scherdinger. Three Pigs, you can find them at Three Pigs Pate, and our lovely Brownwood Farms at Brownwood_farms. You can find Julie at What Julie Ate, and Justin at Eat Fellow Humans, correct?
Correct.
And what else? Where else? Where can they see what you're up to next? Or
so I think I've got a couple episodes of Guys Grocery Games on Food Network that are still in the pipe. They'll probably be coming out here in the fall. I just did a show with Reed Drummond called Big Bad Budget Battle, which was pretty fun. I was a judge on that. And I do believe that Tournament of Champions Season 4 will be coming eventually. That'll probably be a next spring project. If it happens, I don't know that it's been confirmed yet, but if anyone was a fan of TOC3, TOC4 is going to be just as insane, promise.
Fantastic as always. And I really would encourage people to follow you at Eat Fellow Humans. If you like an unboxing, there's nothing better than your unboxings, and I don't mean just ours, although it's always great to see you do ours. What you have access to, what you think about things, what you bring. It's a great learning experience if you like food and you're interested in not eating boring. It's a great feed. I love when I catch you live. It's always fantastic. And
thank you very much. I had no clue that those would become like a hallmark of my online personality, but sure enough, just like opening a box, like I just thought it was kind of doofy at first, and I just wanted to share my like kid-like excitement about what's in a box. But yeah, now everybody is like, when are we going to get another unboxing? What are you going to unbox next? Can you unbox this? Can you unbox that? And I'm like, well, if it doesn't happen organically, then it's going to lose some of the childlike sense of wonder.
Yeah. Yes, I hear you. All right. Well, Justin, thanks again for co-curating with us. For those of you who are listening along, if we haven't talked you into not eating boring, then don't go to curdbox.com. But if we have, join us for our next one. Julie will be with me. Julie, thanks as always for eating cheese with me. I will see you next month. And until then, go try ham and cheese and pickles, everybody. It's your assignment for the day. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next month.